Hello and welcome. You're viewing the Citizens Journalist podcast, Mesa County Compass, that brings you the news that you can use from a different point of view. I'm Ruth.
I'm Lisa.
And together we are Mesa County Compass. Our goal is to create an informed, current, active citizenry armed with the facts. We will be covering what's new to you, what it means to you, what you can do about it, and provide you access to the decision makers when we can. Welcome this afternoon to Mesa County Compass. We are going to interview, once again, Barb Evanson from the Mesa County School District. She is one of our fabulous board members, I might say, and she has some interesting things to tell us about the recent happenings at the school board. So Barbara, welcome, and just give us a real brief synopsis as to how you got on the board and that kind of thing.
The election process started back mine started a little later than most did. I had resigned from the school and from the school district because I was working as security for the district. And, there were a lot of things that I saw that I really wanted to make changes to when I was there, but I just really wasn't in the position to do that. And God's divinity, it dropped in my lap that there was a position that was available for the District A. And my husband and I talked it over. We prayed about it and made the decision that it was the right thing to do. So had a lot of great supporters during that time. And by God's grace, I was elected in November. And I've been sitting since, I believe it was November 26th was when we swore in. And we hit the ground running.
And, you did indeed.
And it's not slowed down much. I feel like I'm on a treadmill, like at max speed, and just trying to catch my breath a little bit.
It's supposed to slow down in the summertime. What?
Yeah. So, well, hopefully it will. I think it will, but I don't know. We still have access to our emails throughout the summer, still getting concerns. I think that there's still a lot that pops up. Some people have that little bit of brevity themselves and time to think through things, and they're like, man, this does concern me. Let me reach out to my board. Let me see what I can do and try to fix things during the summer.
It's good, though, that they're thinking ahead of time.
Right.
Constantly thinking, whereas it used to be that people didn't think much about things like that.
No.
So we're in the position we're in.
Right. So what would you say is the thing that you feel like you've made the most difference for a positive way in the school district?
So I feel that with the team, because there's a team of 5 of us, and of course we have a lot of admin staff that help us out, that we've had a really good opportunity to start taking a look, and this was already kind of in the works. There were a lot of policies that hadn't been revised in a really long time, and our attorney, Tammy Arrett, was taking the time to start running through this and reaching out to board members and just getting feedback on these things. So we came in during a time where there were a lot of policies, and when I say we, I mean Jose Luis Chavez and I came in at a time where there were a lot of policies that we're looking at for revision. And so we've had a lot of opportunity to have say-so in those policies. We've revised quite a few policies in the few short months that I've been on the board, which I think are going to play a significant impact in how they affect our students, our teachers,
very good,
in a more positive manner.
So can you name some of those?
So I actually have some notes here because my memory is crazy bad. But so we recently revised ILJ or IJL, which is our library material selection. It gives some guardrails, if you will, as far as, you think of when you're bowling and do I want the rails up or do I want the rails down? And while I like to have the rails down because I don't want anybody to accuse me of cheating, the rails up gives a little bit more guidance as far as, what's being selected, who's selecting it, what type of content's being selected, so that we're ensuring that there's not pornographic material in our libraries, that there's age-appropriate material in our libraries. So we also have a new policy, the JICJ. Well, it's updated for our cell phone policy. So I can tell you that from my position as a security officer, and I worked in a middle school, and it was funny because I had a conversation with a high school student that was one of my middle school students, and she was so concerned about the cell phone policy, and she's like, what's the deal? You're just taking away. I was like, no, that's not what's happening. And I was like, but I want you to tell me, think of all the incidents that we dealt with at the middle school that I worked at, how many of those incidents didn't include a cell phone? And she's like, okay, you got me. And I was like, exactly. I was like, every single incident was some sort of social media, email, texting, phone calls, photos, there was also always some kind of thing that was happening that had to do with the cell phones. And she was like, yeah, you're right. If we limit that usage. And she's like, but I'm a high school student. I was like, you're right. You're going to be a junior next year. And there are going to be a little bit more leniency with our high school students because they are growing up. They're learning to think. They're learning to make decisions for themselves. And we want them to be able to make those educated decisions.
Right.
But a classroom is not the time to be using cell phones. So there's still going to be limits on during classroom learning time. There may be, times when throughout the day that they'll have an opportunity to use it when they have free time that is not part of a learning experience. But our middle school, from 8th grade down to kindergarten, it's going to be much more strict. So
that is great.
I think that's the best thing that's happened in a long time.
Oh, I do too. So with that, and it's not only distraction, and especially in high school, it's cheating. Because
potentially,
if you've got your cell phone there, there's access to the internet as well.
Well, something that came up during my campaign that I never even knew about. I had a gentleman say something to me about ChatGPT. And he said, my daughter confessed to me that she never wrote a single paper the entire time that she was in college, that she used artificial intelligence to write her papers. And it's funny because I've seen a couple things come out through ChatGPT, and you can see some similarities or things that occur every time that it comes out of ChatGPT. So if you don't alter it, then you can start to see where people are using it. But for the most part,
yeah.
So you're right. If we remove that from the educational environment, short of a teacher needing it for an educational reason, which there's always that opportunity as well for them to say, I need this. This is the reason I need it. They run it past their administrator. If they get approval from their administrator, then they can use it for that purpose. So there are guardrails, like I said.
Right.
It would be nice if you could teach the students how to use that properly. Not for cheating, but it is quite an interesting educational tool as well. It can be used. It's a remarkable tool, but it can be so easily you can lead down the wrong path real quick.
I mean, absolutely. Think about when we were, it's so funny. My husband and I had this conversation the other day, and we were talking about something that was historical thing that had happened back in my hometown. And he's like, well, where did you find that at? And I was like, it was on microfiche. And he's like, people don't even know what microfiche is, And I was like, I've searched Google, I've looked in all these other places, and it's not there. But I went to our county library and pulled up the microfiche and put the slide in and searched around and found the article where it was located. And so, I mean, in some ways, I think, yes, this is a great resource, but it also limits our minds.
It does.
It keeps us from going and searching and digging and doing the work, because it is right here at our fingertips.
Right.
So I feel that I developed a lot of my intelligence. I developed a lot of knowledge on doing research because I was a detective. I worked cold cases. I worked all kinds of different things when I was a police officer, and I developed those skills not from using this.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
From not using this.
Right.
From not using it. Yeah.
So, yeah. So
and you wind up using your intuition rather than...
Yes. So it is very resourceful, and it does have its purpose, but I challenge our kids to get your resources elsewhere, dig deeper,
Right.
Pull out the books, use the books.
Right.
Well, because the books can't change, and they have found with AI that a lot of times it is left leaning, and so it will change information. If you ask to see something, it'll give you just what they want you to see, as opposed to, and it makes it more expensive because I know a lot of colleges now have had to get software to let them know if it looks like AI, and they can go back because it's so prevalent.
Because I use AI on occasion. I do know how to prevent it from being so left-leaning, because you have to ask it to give you the conservative point of view. You have to know to be able to do that. And it does help. Just
Good to know.
FYI.
Good to know.
Interesting.
So you have you have had some things that are ongoing, and I don't know how much you want to talk about it. I know that the Orchard Mesa Pool has been a huge bone of contention between the city and the school district. Can you tell us what started that, what the problem is, what each side wants, and
So
why it's a big deal, and kind of if there's a resolution? Did you get all that?
So I think so. As you know, we have significant declining enrollment in District 51, which is putting the district in a financial standpoint where we have to be looking at everything that we're putting money into, which has brought up several topics. We're looking at salaries, we're looking at who we're paying, what we're donating to, all of these different things. And this was one thing that's been looked at, my understanding, before I ever even got on the board. And just looking at how much money we're putting into it for insurance and, different resources that are there. And then that the city is actually, they're running it and they're maintaining it, if you will. And just, it's an older facility. I think there's a hot tub that's like completely broken at this point, and everything's underneath. It would have to be completely renovated. And so when we sit down with our COO and we're talking dollars, we're talking how much is it going to cost to do this? Is it financially sensible and not even advantageous? Like, is it sensible for us to maintain this? And then, looking at the involvement with the city and the county made the decision that we don't want to have anything to do with this. So, they offered up $800,000 as kind of like their good favor. Like, we appreciate doing business with you, but we don't want anything to do with this anymore. And
that's because they're actually in the county where Orchard Mesa Pool is?
So I believe that there was, and like I said, this was all kind of happened before I got there, and so there was some kind of an agreement between the three entities at some point. So the county, their due diligence was, is this sufficient? And so, but the city they're maintaining it, they're running it, they're getting the profit, I guess that's the right word, like they're, any money that's over generated. The overhead comes back to the city. And so, can we continue to maintain this? And answer,
should we?
Yeah, and the answer is no. I mean, the district cannot continue to maintain that, and it's something that, and again, my understanding is that there's been ongoing conversation on this topic for an extended period of time, yes. And the district has offered, the property, the building, the pool, all of these things. In the past, and so it's just never been taken. And so I think that the current board and our COO and our financial office, our budget division, like they've all gotten together and they ran the numbers, and we can't. And so
that makes sense.
We would absolutely love to see it stay there. I mean, Orchard Mesa was one of my schools, and I know that a bunch of my kids go over there during the summer, but they also get out of the river and they go fishing. Don't go in the river right now, though. It's unsafe. So right. Give it some time. Let the runoff go away. It's really cold, too. So, but so a lot of the kids would go over there during the summer. And but then a lot of my kids would say like, oh yeah, but now the cool pool's opened up, so they'll literally truck it across town to get to the outdoor pool, right, because it's not stuffy and they don't smell the chlorination, and they enjoy the outdoor pool more. So just how many people are going to be using that facility, and I mean there's just so many things that go into it. But the straight and narrow is, long story short, short story long, if you will, the district, we can't financially continue to support that. And it's, as President Heitz has said before, like the district is in the teaching business, not in the pool business. And as much as we would like to keep that open for our kids, a decision has to be made. And so we're hoping that we can come to an agreement with the city so that if they want to take it and then it's theirs and they choose to do with it as they please, then that would be fabulous. And then,
but if they don't choose that, then you're going to close it and
so we are on schedule for August 15th being the last operational date for the pool. The city's been notified of that, and
which is the first day of school anyway, isn't it?
Yes. So I believe it is. It might be a little. Yeah, I believe it is. So and then we're still in the process of moving forward with getting contractors, quotes, things like that, picking someone, and then if between now and then the city decides they want to take it or another entity wants to take it and purchase it, then that would be fabulous. But the district, as of right now, is moving forward with August 15th being the closure date of that, and hopefully we can come to an agreement that is advantageous for everybody. So
I was going to say, people complain because the school district spends so much money on everything. This is one of those things that isn't necessary for education, per se. So it is time to be done, I think. Personal opinion, but time to be done.
And I didn't realize that for a long time. I thought it was just owned by the city until all this came up, and that the city wanted to get rid of it. So I didn't realize the school district, because I was at Orchard Mesa when they had that pool built and stuff. So
yeah, and honestly, it was something that wasn't on my radar as a citizen until I became a member of the school board, and then realizing the ins and outs of it and how much the district is spending on it, and
when
we could
when
use
they're
those
really
resources
not getting
elsewhere.
Yes.
when they're really not getting the benefit of it,
Right.
when you're turning over that income. So all you're doing is paying.
To an extent, yeah. I would say that there are a lot of financial resources that are going into it, and the return is not there. So I think.
Okay, I'm going to change the subject then. Happy note.
Happy note.
Grand Junction High open.
Yes,
How
it's
is it?
looking great. It's beautiful. It's been a couple months since I've been in it. We took a tour, and the gymnasium wasn't finished yet the last time I was in it, but we've had our update. We had our 100th update that we recently received, and it's looking fabulous. It's going to be a fantastic facility for our kiddos. I think that I have a friend whose son, it's going to be his first year there, and he's so excited. And he said something about, like, I got to be careful what shoes I wear. I don't want to mess with the floor or something like that. And I was like, well, they have those booties that they made us wear. I'll get you a pair of those.
Yeah.
So, but he's super excited, and I think that it's very bittersweet. I have a lot of close friends that have worked in the school or that have attended the school, or one of my friends is like, it's so great to see something that is so updated and safe, and not built with the same construction materials that were built when we were, when it was built. And it's actually, and she's just like, we had walked, I took one of my friends when they did the tour there, and we walked into one of the rooms, and she's like, oh my gosh, like, it's just crazy to me how bad, like, how the material is just like falling apart. And she's like, it's just so great to see that they'll have something new where they can use every section of the building, where something hasn't, gotten broken over here and we couldn't fix it, and, or whatnot. It's just, it's really exciting. It's super exciting. I'm excited for the kids that are going to be in there, but it is very bittersweet to see that building go down.
So what are the plans for demolition of the old one?
So during our last update from the builders, essentially the second that those teachers walked out that door, they walked in the door. Like, the door never even shut. They were in there, and they're making plans on how the demolition is going to go. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a staged process. So there will be certain sections that are coming down first, and then so they'll be kind of moving around. But demolition will be going on for quite some time. But I think that and there's certain areas that we need to turn into parking lots and things like that. So those will be going first. But yeah, so it'll be a process, but it will be a much better facility for the kids to be in.
It'll be nice.
Yes.
It'll be nice.
Well, it had a lot of asbestos in it, so that's going to be pretty expensive to take all of that out and redo.
Yeah. You would know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
There hasn't been a building that I've worked in since I left. I think my high school was filled with asbestos. So I don't know. I don't think there's been a building that I've been in since I was probably 5 that hasn't had some kind of craziness in it.
Great product. Very
It
useful.
has its purpose, but
It is a good product.
it's a catch-22.
Yeah.
So on that note too, then I've heard of several, because now other schools are saying we need to be updated, and Fruita needs to be redone. But do you think the taxpayers are willing to, after they've just had this great big monetary project, willing to say, why don't you let us just sit for a minute?
So right now, we have our long-range facility plan that's been going on for quite some time, and then it kind of meshed in with the declining enrollment committee. And there were there were a lot of things that came to fruition, because you look at a building and you think, oh, this building's great. But then this team goes in with these specific parameters and these very specific things that they're looking for. And I kind of compare it, my daughter's in gymnastics. And she's like, man, that judge was really hard. And I was like, yeah, but that judge is being really hard on everyone.
Right.
Or, it's fair across the board. So we went in with these specific parameters, looking at every single building in the district. And it's not just schools, it's administrative buildings as well. And so having those specific parameters and getting the feedback, and a lot of the feedback has been blind up to this point. And that was to ensure that we were getting data and there was no emotional decisions being made. So if I don't know that it's a specific school, because like I said, I worked in certain schools, and my heart's with heart's with all the kids. But like when I think of some of the schools that I worked in, if I was like, oh, so a lot of the data has been blind. But we can see the big picture of everything that's happening in the building. And it goes from, the building condition was one of the biggest things that we were looking at. And that's not just like, well, does it need a new roof? It's also the safety and security of the building. Does the building flow? Like, if A happened, I guess, so when I think of safety and security, it's like, well, if this door is accessed, then how many other rooms can be accessed? And is this a good plan? Is this a good floor plan? Could we do better? So there's just so many things that go into looking at these buildings and making the decisions as to what needs to happen. And there will be an update that's coming out really soon, so I'm not gonna bust the bubble right now. I'll wait for that to come out. It's gonna be on our 18th of June board meeting. There'll be some more information that comes out to that gives a little bit more information. But basically, the short and sweet is if a building scores a certain level, and this has nothing to do with closures right now, like the long range facility plan that went through has nothing to do with school closures. It's all about what are we going to do with these buildings. So hypothetically, if a building scores really, really badly, and we know that we need to spend money to get it to a level that's efficient, acceptable, then, but we have 10 buildings hypothetically that need that kind of maintenance, which one are we going to spend that money on first, know, and how are we going to, so
where are you going to get that money?
Exactly. And where's that money going to come from? Is it going to come from, a bond or whatnot? So I think that, and in my opinion, as I get older, I appreciate this a little bit more because I'm getting older and I'm feeling broken and I want to fix myself and I want to continue to move forward. So I don't look at an old building and say, oh, it's old, let's tear it down and put up something new. Right. That's not the answer, because clearly from looking at how much it costs to build Grand Junction High School, and yet again, super thankful for that. And thank you to the taxpayers for voting for that and allowing us to do that. But if that hadn't have happened, then we look at we have to fix this old broken thing. Can I put some acetaminophen in it? Can I give it some ibuprofen? What is it that I can do to fix this building?
Does it need a hip replacement?
Yes, absolutely. So we have to look at those things, and then we do have to ask our community, are you willing? And I think that's very important because I look at the budget, I look at the funding, I see where money goes, and as a taxpayer in this community, I look at where my taxes are going, and I'm like, we need to be good. We need to be good fiduciaries. We need to be doing the right thing. We need to be good stewards of this money. And I think that it's very important that our taxpayers have a say-so in that. And so, as we're coming up on election season, everybody knows that when they get their ballots, that if there's some kind of an initiative or there's a bond or a mill or something that's going to change, then that's potentially when they're going to see it. And I want them to think like, what do I want to do with my money? Do I see if this fit? And I think that it's absolutely appropriate for our taxpayers to make those decisions. They can vote yes, they can vote no, but understand that with the, and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit, about the new finance formula, that that's going to give us a little bit more in per pupil funding, but not necessarily when it comes down the budget. The budget stabilization factor is going away for 1 year, but it doesn't mean that next year that the state of Colorado's budget might be off and then they decide to take it from schools again. So we just don't know what's going to happen. So yes, we are going to have to ask our taxpayers to help us with that. And I urge every single person that reads that ballot to look at the verbiage to make a well-educated decision on whether or not you think that that's the right thing to do. But yes, so we will have to
So-
have to ask for help.
When people are hesitant to give help, why do you think that has been? Do you think it's like they don't understand? They think this money's not being spent well, or do you think they think that you just came and asked for money last year, now you're asking again, or what do you think are the reasons that people are hesitant to continue, or do you think they don't understand the formula? And could there be more transparency in the budget so that they understood where money comes from for the budgets?
So I have a home budget, but my budget's pretty simple, And when you look at a budget as big, I mean, District 51 is the largest employer in Mesa Valley. And when you look at that budget, it gets mind-boggling after a while. And everything, the periods start rolling together and the dollar signs, and you're like, where is this going? And I don't understand. It does get difficult to read it, and it's been difficult for me, and I've had to have a lot of guidance with that because it is so big. I can handle my personal budget just fine.
Right.
But looking at that, people don't understand where the money is going or why it's being spent a certain way or why someone's getting paid what they're getting paid. And so there's a lot of thought that goes into that. We have our compensation oversight, which sits down and talks about, well, I mean, hypothetically, we recently raised, or we are this next school year going to be increasing the starting salary for a new teacher to $50,000. And according to, the pay scales for other school districts, that's still not comparable. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're fighting to get it to where it is comparable. We're doing well. Like it's great, but there's other districts, but they also receive more funding. Mm-hmm. So it's just, where are we putting the money? How we need to show teachers that they're valued. We need to pay them what they're worth. Like without teachers, there wouldn't be a district. Right. Mm-hmm. I hear people say, well, you don't value I value it. Without teachers, like they're the most valuable thing here next to our kids. Without kids, there's no school. Without mm-hmm. teachers, there's no school. Everything else is optional, mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. trying to figure out like where all that goes. So a lot of people are like, well, if this is how much you're paying someone here, but then you're paying this other person over here why? Mm-hmm. So I think it is about not understanding the budget and why we pay certain things, or, why certain people are paid this and why certain people are paid that. And then like the big picture, like it's also a facilities thing, we have so the district right now has 46 schools. That's just schools, that are operational. And then we have administrative buildings, and then so there's just all this, it's just such a huge operation. Right. And so it's been a lot for me to wrap my head around, and I can go talk to the financial office. Right. I can talk to the COO. I can have up close conversations, and it's still hard to understand. Mm-hmm. And so I'm absolutely certain that it's very difficult for the general public to understand what's happening. But the good thing is that the district does do a good job of being very transparent. They put the budget, like it's on the website, completely open, available for anyone to view to see where the money is going. Mm-hmm. And so
so we need to give out the cell phone number of the COO so that people can, no, I'm
kidding.
Not
doing that.
And they can come in and they can say, could you explain this to me, please? I don't get it.
So, yeah, I believe that our guys do a great job of sitting down and explaining it to us so that we fully understand it. And there are a lot of things that we're looking at, trying to be good stewards of the taxes that are coming in. I mean, there have been some agreements that the district has had in the past mm-hmm. that the board has recently looked at, and we're like, why are we doing that? Let's not do that anymore. Mm-hmm. We need to have this conversation about why we're putting money over here. Is that a good place should the district be paying for that? Should we?
Okay, let's just go through and say, this is the paying for the MVEA, half their salary representative. So what was the conflict over that? I mean, I know what I think the conflict is, but since it had happened for so long, what started it? Why did the district think they owed that? And how did you guys see it differently?
So as an employee of the district, I had no idea. And I worked for the district in safety and security for 2 years, and I had absolutely no idea that the district did that. And then I came in and we were having financial conversations at one point, and like I said, I'm new to the board. Everybody knows this. Mm-hmm. And apparently there were conversations that were had in previous years amongst board members about addressing this, about it is, something that we need to have conversation about, because it can ebb and flow. It just depends on how much experience the president of the MBA has as to how much the district was putting into it, because it's essentially 49% the district is paying and 51% the MBA is paying for the salary of the MBA's president. And it has absolutely nothing to do with the person. It's all about the financial aspect of it. And so when we're looking at where can we do what, how can we be better stewards of this money? And when that was brought up, first off, I personally was very surprised, because I just didn't. We lived in Missouri for a period of time, and there were unions in Missouri on the military installation. And they helped to the employees that worked for the union, they were members of the union there that worked on the bases. They helped supplement, because there weren't enough military members so the dealings with the union there, I knew that if you wanted to be a member of the union, then you had to pay your dues to the union. If you didn't want to be a member of the union, you didn't. But there, the government, the actual U.S. government, didn't pay a portion of that union president's salary.
Right.
It all came from the members. And every time I've ever dealt with any other, I guess I just assumed that that's how it was here.
That's
so
I would have assumed that too.
So when I heard that it wasn't, I was like, well, how much money are we spending? And then we started getting monetary, we started getting numbers in, and I'm like, well, what, and everybody's thinking, what else can we put this money towards? And again, me thinking that any union representative would be paying for their president, and to find out that we were paying a portion of that. So financially speaking, it just made absolutely no sense for us to be doing that. And I mean, like I said, with all due respect, I've had quite a few conversations before we ratified and came to an agreement with this with the MBA. I've had quite a few conversations afterwards. And I understand the value of the union. I understand what their purpose is. I understand that our teachers, our counselors, our psychologists, they don't necessarily fall under the same, laws as other people do, and they're not protected the way that other people are. And so they need representation. And it's incumbent that they have that representation. However, if you want that representation from that specific entity,
you need to pay for it.
Then it's incumbent upon your members to pay for that. And with the money that we've saved from that, with other money that we've been able to save, and unfortunately, as much as it breaks my heart, with the closure of East and the reallocation of that money, and all of the other things that the board has looked at that we've been able to pull money from, because we're no longer going to be funding those things because it doesn't make sense. We were able to give teachers raises and increase COLA for all employees. So, and that's brings up, I don't know if you want me to segue or if you'd like to segue.
Go ahead, segue.
But, that recently we've had conversations about affordable housing. And so the district, again, before I got on the board, had reached out to an entity, and they had received some grant money, and there was the availability for them to have this, and I'm sorry, I'm going to just completely destroy who this is, but this lovely group of people did some research, and, they were looking at what can we offer? What are other districts doing? What are we doing? And I looked at, wow, we're giving, we're going to try to, one of the things I know that we're currently doing is trying to continue to increase that salary, to increase everyone's salary as best we possibly can, so that we put what they do with their money in their own hands, and they're making their own financial decisions, and they are being responsible for their own budget. And if we can put that money in their hands and help them make that, here is more financial resource for you. So I know that is what the board is definitely committed to doing, is trying to increase salaries so that we can, but then again, we're still having conversations about this new affordable housing. What can we do? Can we help with down payment assistance? Can we do with these other things? And so those are conversations that'll be had in the future.
There's a big article about it in the paper today.
Yeah. And I know that the district's committed to helping, our employees, because like I said, we don't have a district if we don't have teachers, and we don't have a district if we don't have students. And if we're not doing our due diligence to do what's best for them. And you don't have a district
if you don't have taxpayers.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
After a while, you say, who's subsidizing me that work at the...
And how much is too much?
Yeah.
Because I know there's
What's
a lot.
my responsibility?
Right. And then without those students, because then again, that goes back to declining enrollment. I mean, there's a lot of kids who don't even attend our district, or people that don't have children, or people whose children are all grown up. So how much do you keep asking of those taxpayers that no longer have a dog in the fight?
Okay, so one of my big concerns was the social studies curriculum, and I understood that you looked through the whole thing. So tell us what you found.
Okay. So one of the things that's been a big standpoint for me is not teaching our kids what to think, but teaching them how to think and giving them all the available resources and knowledge that they can possibly have in order to make educated personal decisions for how they're going to live their lives and what they believe and what they think. And so when I took a look at this, I wanted to see if there was anything that was persuasive in any direction. Is it more persuasive here? Is it more persuasive over here? Or is it straight down and we've talked about those guardrails. Are the guardrails up? Are we giving them information that they can make an educated decision, and we're not pulling them, as some people might say, to the left or to the right? We're putting them straight down the middle, and we're saying, this is history. Do with it what you please, but these are the facts. And I found that our social studies curriculum that we chose did exactly that, or will do exactly that. So there was information from every aspect of society. It followed some not specific religious curriculum, but it tells you who people are. And then it tells you this is who people thought they were, and this is your decision to make. And then it flows and it goes through, all of history. And one of the big things is that we were seeing kind of like a decline in Holocaust information. It covers all of that. So there's a lot of information there. It follows history. It gives historical information without pulling someone one direction or another. So I think that the curriculum team did a fabulous job picking the social studies curriculum.
That makes me very happy. Last topic, because we're running out of juice.
I know.
How do you feel about safety in schools now? Do teachers feel safe? Do kids feel safe? Is the district working on that? Is there a feeling that there's more discipline, that teachers are able to teach what they need to teach? And how is the school district doing on that? Or is that a topic for another day?
Well, so I can touch on a couple things with that. I feel, so first off, safety is never going to stop. There's always going to be something we can be doing better. There's always something that we can do to make anyone that walks on our campus is safer. One of the things that I know, so our expulsion rate was down significantly this year. Now, one of the things that, in my opinion, played a big toll in that is that the year that I resigned, which would have been the beginning of this school year, during the summer, there was a little curtailing to the discipline matrix. So if you work at one school and you work at another school, and you have a student that did the exact same thing, you can look at that discipline matrix and it gives you guidelines as to things that you need to do, whether you need to notify law enforcement, notify safety and security, and what your discipline options are. Is this a 1-day suspension? Is this possible for in-school suspension? Is this required for out-of-school suspension? Do we need to be looking directly at expulsion? So I think that last year, when that was initially implemented, that there were a lot of kids, and I guess the best way I can say it is there were still the behaviors, but they were being held accountable. So our expulsion increased last year. And then I think that people kind of got the clue that I'm going to be held accountable for my actions. And so when people started realizing that, the behavior started, to an extent, the expulsion level behaviors started to decrease. Do we still have behaviors? Absolutely. Do we still have day-to-day chaos that's occurring? And when I say chaos, I just mean I worked in a middle school, and I was like, oh, what are you going to the office for? Oh, what are you going to the office for? And then they've got 4 discipline situations at one time, and trying to deal with those and get them handled properly, but paying as much attention to each student as possible to ensure that they're getting, what they need. Right. So I think that we are always working harder to make our schools safer. I know that we're working on some additional policies and procedures to give more guidance and guidelines and guardrails, if you will, to make it easier to ensure that the discipline that's happening on this side of the district is also happening on this side of the district, but the safety stuff that's happening on this side of the district is also happening on this side of the district. So we're kind of doing things in a uniform fashion instead of all willy-nilly and whatever you want to do. So just trying to keep...
Helps.
Yes. So, and then of course this, our long-range facility plan took a look at a lot of that. And so a lot of that information is going to be brought to us in the next coming weeks, and we're going to be able to look at the schools and see what can we do in these schools to increase safety and security, to increase, to do whatever we can to make these better and safer environments and buildings for our teachers, our staff, and anyone else, our students that are in those buildings. So, but I think I'll have more on that as time comes and we get a little bit more information on the buildings that we're concerned about and what we can do to make it better. And of course, always working on behaviors. So
that just gives us the clue that we ought to start going to school board meetings and paying attention, or at least getting online and watching them.
Yeah.
So
they're there.
they're there. They are indeed.
They're long, but you can fast forward if you don't go.
Oh, and one of the things that we are looking at, just an FYI, and it came up during our last board meeting. So we have a new website.
Right.
So if you click on something now, it might take you to this website no longer exists. So you have to get into our new website in order to search things, but it's way more user friendly than the previous one was.
Good.
We're going to try to put things that make sense in one location instead of 15 different locations. Because before, like when I worked for the district, I might search here and I'd find one thing, but then it didn't get updated in this other section, and somebody else might be pulling it up in this section. So then we have conflicting information, and I'm like, well, this is the newest one. Which one do you have? So we have to. So now it's all updated. It's all going to be in like one location. Everything is going to be. They're doing such a good job with that. Like super excited about the website, because that was like one of my things that just made my brain want to just ooze right out of my ears when I would try to find things. So it's so much better. And then we are looking at and I can't remember what it's called, board something or another. It's not Board Docs. Board Docs was the expensive one. There's a new program that we're looking at to facilitate all of the board meetings in. So all of the minutes would go into it. The video would go into it. You can go in and you can search, and it's going to start off with like when we adopt it, if we adopt it, that whichever board meeting will immediately go into that one, and then they're going to slowly put the other ones in. So if you have something that you want to search, pool, it'll pull up all the meetings that we've had where the pool has been discussed.
Nice.
If you want to search something from, I don't know, 2 years ago or whatever, you can put it in and it'll pull up that information once they get all that retroactivated and put into the system.
Wonderful.
So
That'll be fun.
That'd be
fun for somebody.
I'm going to be searching everywhere. So, but yeah, good things are happening. I mean, there's always room to grow. There's always room to be better. I mean, personally, for ourselves, for the school district, like for everyone. So I think that we have a lot of good work ahead of us, and I think that we have a really good team, and I look forward to working with them.
very good.
Yep.
Very
So
good.
Well, we're going to cut it off just because I'm not sure that we have too many minutes left on this, but we want you back again.
All right.
Keep coming. And you've been watching Mesa County Compass. This is the truth as we see it, the facts as we know them. You decide, but also comment. Ask Barb questions so she knows where our concerns are too. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Barb.
yes, ma'am.